The sun was bright over Lagos, casting the golden ray on the city's big streets. It was supposed to be the happiest day of Adana's life. She stopped in front of the mirror in her hotel room, adjusting her white lace gown. Her heart was full of excitement. Today, she would become Mrs. Adana Chikeobi. Her mother, Mama Ifoma, had spent months helping her plan the perfect wedding. Her younger sister, Kamsi, had been by her side, choosing decorations and laughing about the honeymoon. Everything was ready. The flowers, the music, the guests waiting at the hall. But where was the groom? Minutes turned into hours. Calls to Chike went unanswered. Mama Ifoma and Kamsi, who had gone to check on him, were also missing. Adana's hands trembled as she refreshed her phone screen, hoping for a message, an explanation. Guests began whispering, then leaving. The once beautiful hall now felt empty. With tears streaming down her face, she pulled off her veil, staring at her reflection. How could the people she trusted most disappear on the most important day of her life? The pain in her chest was heavy, but the worst part was not knowing why. Adana sat on the hotel bed, still in her wedding gown, staring at her phone screen. The call log was filled with unanswered calls to Mama Ifoma, Kamsi and Chike. She tried again. The number you're trying to reach is not available, the robotic voice repeated. Her hands felt weak, her chest tight. How could they all vanish like this? Her mother and sister wouldn't just abandon her. And Chike, was this some kind of a cruel joke? Hours passed and reality sank in. The wedding was all over, even before it even began. Friends sent messages of pity, some offering to come over, but she ignored them. She didn't need pity. No, she needed answers. With slow hands, she removed her jewelries, wiped the tears from her face, and picked up her suitcase. There was no reason to stay in this hotel any longer. As she walked out, the receptionist gave her a sad smile, but Adana just nodded. She had no words. The street of Lagos felt colder that evening, and for the first time in her life, she felt truly alone. Back in her apartment, Adana curled up on the couch, staring at the ceiling. The city buzzed outside, but inside everything was quiet. Too quiet. She reached for her phone again, scrolling through old messages from Kamsi. Just days ago, they had been laughing about the wedding dresses and hairstyles. Now, nothing. Her heart ached. The next morning, she forced herself to get up. She needed answers. She visited Chike's apartment, but it was locked. His car was gone. She knocked on the neighbor's door. "Excuse me, have you seen Chike?" she asked an elderly woman who had lived there for years. The woman frowned. "Chike? Ha, my dear. He left 2 days ago with his bags. He said he was traveling." Adana's stomach dropped. Traveling? Without telling her? Without telling anyone? Something was very wrong. Adana stood frozen in front of Chike's apartment, her mind racing. He had packed his bags and left, just like that? It didn't make any sense. She pulled out her phone and dialed Kamsi again, still unavailable. Then she tried Mama Ifoma, nothing. The fear in her chest grew heavier. Something wasn't right. She took a deep breath and headed to her mother's house. It was a small but cozy bungalow in a quiet estate. She knocked. No answer. She peered through the window. Curtains drawn. Silence inside. She walked around to the back calling, "Mama, Kamsi." But there was nothing. No sign of life. Her hands trembled as she tried the door. It was locked. A neighbor, an elderly woman named Mama Nkechi, stepped out. "Ha, Adana, what are you doing here?" she asked. Adana turned, her throat dry. "Mama Nkechi, have you seen my mother or sister?" The old woman's face softened with concern. "Eh? They left though. I saw them loading suitcases into a taxi 2 days ago. I thought they traveled for your honeymoon party." Adana's knees felt weak. Her mother and sister had packed their things and disappeared just like Chiki. Adana sat in her car, gripping the steering wheels. The city moved around her, but inside she felt empty. Her wedding was ruined, her family was missing, and no one had left a single message. The betrayal stung, but the confusion was worse. Why would her mother and sister leave without telling her? And why would they leave with Chike? She drove to Kamsi's best friend, Amaka, hoping for answers. "Amaka, have you heard from Kamsi?" she asked the moment the door opened. Amaka's eyes flickered with hesitation. "Huh? No, she hasn't called me." Adana studied her face. There was something in Amaka's voice. Nervousness, guilt maybe. "Amaka, if you know something, please tell me," she pleaded. Amaka sighed, glancing around as if making sure no one else was listening. Then in a low voice she said, "Adana, something is not right. The day before your wedding, Kamsi was acting strange. She kept checking her phone, looking worried. I asked her what was wrong, but she just shook her head. And then she told me she might not be at the wedding." Chill ran down Adana's spine. Her sister had known she wouldn't be at the wedding? Then why hadn't she said anything? Adana narrowed her eyes. "What do you mean?" Amaka stepped inside, lowering her voice. "Adana, I overheard something before they left." Adana felt her chest tightened. "What?" Amaka took a deep breath. "Chike, he never planned to marry you." Adana's blood went cold. "What?" Amaka nodded. "He was already involved with Kamsi. Your mother knew, but she thought he would choose you in the end. When Kamsi got pregnant, they panicked. Your mother suggested they leave Nigeria to avoid shame. That's why they disappeared." Adana's stomach twisted. So it had all been a lie. Her engagement, her relationship with Chike, even the love she thought she had. Tears stung her eyes, but she refused to cry. She had shed enough tears for them. Adana sat in silence, letting Amaka's words sink in. It was worse than she had imagined. She had thought Chike loved her. She had thought Kamsi was her best friend. But they had built their relationships on lies. Amaka placed a hand on hers. "I know this is hard, but you need to move on. Don't let them destroy you." Adana swallowed a lump in her throat. "Move on? How? They took everything from me." Amaka's eyes softened. "Then take something back." Adana looked at her confused. "What do you mean?" Amaka smiled. "Rebuild yourself. Show them you don't need them to be happy." For the first time in weeks, Adana felt a spark inside her, a spark of determination. She started focusing on herself, her career, her dreams. She stopped waiting for apologies that would never come. One evening, she walked past a new art gallery opening in Lagos. Something about it called to her. She stepped inside, admiring the paintings. And that was when she met him. A young man with warm eyes and a kind smile. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he asked, nodding at the painting. Adana hesitated before nodding. "Yes, it is." For the first time in a long time, she smiled. Maybe life wasn't over after all. The young man extended his hand. "I'm Emeka." Adana hesitated before shaking it. "Adana." He smiled. "Nice to meet you, Adana. I don't usually come to art galleries, but something told me to stop by today." She glanced at the painting they were admiring. It was a portrait of a woman standing alone, looking at the ocean. There was sadness in her eyes, but also strength. Something about it spoke to her. Emeka noticed her expression. "It's called finding peace," he said. "It's about a woman who loses everything but chooses to heal." Adana's breath hitched. Was this a sign? She turned to him and smiled softly. "I think I needed to see this today." Emeka tilted his head. "Rough couple of months?" She chuckled dryly. "You have no idea." Adana wasn't sure why, but she found herself talking to Emeka for hours. They left the gallery and walked through the streets of Lagos talking about everything. Life, work, dreams. She didn't tell him about Chike or Kamsi, but she spoke about heartbreak, how betrayal could shake the very foundation of a person. Emeka listened without judgment. He didn't offer empty words of pity. Instead, he shared his own story. "I lost my father last year," he admitted. "I thought I'd never recover from it, but life moves forward, whether we want it to or not." Adana looked at him, realizing how different he was from Chike. Chike had always been charming, but something about Emeka felt real. Maybe healing wasn't so far away. Days passed and Adana found herself thinking about Emeka more and more. They exchanged numbers and started texting. He made her laugh, something she hadn't done in a long time. But just when she thought she was moving on, her past came crashing back. One evening, her phone rang, a foreign number. Her heart pounded. She knew who it was before she even answered. She took a deep breath and picked up. "Hello?" A pause, then Kamsi's voice, soft and hesitant. "Adana, please don't hang up." Adana clenched her jaw. "Why are you calling me?" I needed to hear your voice," Kamsi whispered. Adana closed her eyes. Her anger, the betrayal, it all came rushing back. She wasn't ready for this. She ended the call without another word. The next morning, Adana was sipping coffee when her phone rang again. She groaned, expecting Kamsi, but it wasn't her. It was Chike. Her hand shook as she stared at the screen. "Why now? Why? After all this time?" She let it ring out. Minutes later, a message popped up. "I'm in Lagos. We need to talk." Adana's stomach twisted. He was back? She put her phone down, her hands trembling. She didn't owe him anything, not anymore. But deep inside, she knew this wasn't over. Adana spent the whole day debating whether to meet Chike. By evening, she made up her mind. She arrived at the cafe where he had asked to meet. The moment she walked in, she saw him. He looked different. He had lost weight. His usual confidence replaced by something else, guilt. "Adana," he said softly, She sat across from him, her expression cold. Talk. Chike sighed. I messed up. Adana scoffed. That's an understatement. He looked down. I never wanted to hurt you. Her hands clenched into fists. Then why did you? Why did you betray me with her? Chike hesitated, then finally whispered, because I was weak. But Adana wasn't interested in excuses. She stood up. I didn't come here for an apology, Chike. I came here to tell you I've moved on. You don't exist in my world anymore. And with that, she walked away. For the first time in months, she felt free. That night, Adana sat on a balcony, staring at the stars. She finally faced Chike, and instead of breaking her, it had empowered her. Her phone buzzed, a message from Emeka. Hope you had a good day. Want to grab dinner tomorrow? She smiled. She didn't need revenge. She didn't need closure from Kamsi or Mama Ifoma. She just needed to leave. And that's exactly what she was going to do. Over the next few months, Adana focused on rebuilding her life. She traveled, reconnected with old friends, and even started therapy. It wasn't easy, but every day she felt lighter. Emeka became a steady presence in her life. He never rushed her, never pressured her. He was simply there. One evening, as they walked by the beach, he turned to her. You are different now. Adana smiled. I feel different. For the first time in forever, she wasn't weighed down by betrayal. She had found herself again, and that was more than enough. The end. I hope you enjoyed our story. Let me know in your comment section if Adana should have ignored Chike's call, and if Adana should forgive her mom and her sister. Let me know in your comment section. Please like, share, subscribe, and let's grow together. Goodbye until our next